Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Brothers Take podcast. I'm your host for this week's episode, Adam, and I'm joined by my brother, Eric.
Hello.
And in this week's episode, we're really just going to kind of coming off. I think we were discussing it last week a little bit. I don't know if it could have been off recording, but this topic that came up about are games these days less replayable. Or that's kind of the feeling that we're getting. So we're just going to talk through that a little bit and really, I suppose, diagnose that topic to see, is that the case, or is the fault lying with us? So if you're enjoying this discussion, please let us know down in the comments. And if you are listening to us on audio podcasts, you can touch base with us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, well, not Twitter, X and Facebook at The Brothers Take. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and the notification bell for all future videos. So without further ado, let's get into the discussion. Okay, so jumping into this discussion then, it's kind of something that we both feel a little bit, and I'm sure if anyone's listened to us, they might be thinking, what the hell are you talking about when we're referring to replayability? So when we're thinking about games and their replay value, there's a ton of games out there that offer a ton of replay, but it might mean something different to you. So when we talk about replay in games, what are you talking about?
For me personally, I suppose it's that case of we're more story-driven people, right? So we've never really discussed Fortnite or Call of Duty Warzone or something like that. So we're more story-driven people. But I remember when I was younger, PS2, PS3 era, I could slap on a, single player narrative story-driven game and play through it, no matter
Yeah.
how many times. I just found that it was very fun to jump into and play. But nowadays, trying to play a story-driven game and trying to replay it can feel like a freaking chore. And I'm only at the start of the game, so I'm just like, Jesus Christ, get on with it. I'm trying to get
Okay,
into.
so have you got an example? Because it's like, I don't know if games have really, if there's that much of a difference.
I think one example might be like trying to replay Uncharted 4 compared to
Okay,
the others.
compared to the
There's
other Uncharted games.
Yes, the other Uncharted games, you can get into it and you play it, and it just feels so fluid and you can
Right.
have fun. But Uncharted 4, I felt, has a lot of stop and start moments. A lot of, I think you mentioned as well with Uncharted 4 before, I think probably even
Yeah,
before we
this
started
was
doing a podcast.
well. This guy, we probably mentioned this on podcast a while back as well. Yeah, about the begin.
Like
Is it
the
the beginning of it? Kinda. It's kind of towards the beginning of it. It's like when you're playing as young Drake.
Well, yeah, every time you play as young Drake, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's points when you are older Drake and you're like, I know I have to climb up that ladder, but I have to wait for Slowpoke to point out that ladder. What I think in
Yeah.
earlier Uncharted games, you could go over to that ladder and you could just do it. Or you could push the cart or something. You didn't have to wait for someone else. So I think that's something I'm more so that I think a lot of games, I think even same with as amazing as the 2018 God of War and God of War Ragnarok are, I find trying to replay them can be the charm is almost gone
Okay.
because they're too story focused.
All right. Okay. So what you're talking about then is like, so we're talking more about narrative driven gaming experiences mostly,
Hmm.
and that there's such an emphasis on the hand holding in the first playthrough that by the time you want to go back and play it, you feel like you're not really being respected as a player in terms of you've done this, you know where to go. There should be a level of okay, you can go ahead without having
Yeah.
to wait for. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's like you're trying to find the bit, and maybe it's supposed to be a puzzle, and you're waiting for Sully to give you the little kind of, oh, how about this over here, or whatever the case may be, and then you can move forward. But once you've played it, it's like you don't need to do all that like waiting around, watching the animation go, and so that's what you're referring to. Really, is that there should be, it should respect you as a player who has completed it.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much because I mean if we take account like Capcom's Resident Evil games, when you know what to do, you just go and do it. You don't have to wait for I know usually in those games you don't really have anyone to handhold you or point out something, but when you know what to do, when you know where you have to get the weird fucking symbol that has the head of a unicorn or something, you got to slot it in the door, you can just go straight up and do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm wondering if like, so when we're talking about the games of that era, like you mentioned the PS2 and stuff, um, there weren't really story driven games to the same extent as like Uncharted and
No.
The Last of Us and games like that. Um, though each game certainly was there were good cutscenes in between moments, and I'm wondering if it's because the method in which a cutscene is used is very different. So back then, a cutscene was used to help not only tell the story but also to load things in the background. Right?
Hmm.
It's like, okay, we're finished with that level. Let's load in everything else, and we'd have a little video play while that happens. And now it's certainly more on the lines of pushing performance and immersion. The objective is a little bit different because of the hardware. They can load things very, very quickly. They kind of don't need a cutscene, really. They reckon it's just because what you're talking about is more story beats that occur in gameplay that you cannot skip. So
Right.
back then it was like if you wanted to replay something like Snake Eater, uh, yeah, there's still a lot of things you have to like trudge through, but you can skip it. Like you can skip a ton of that stuff, and if you know exactly what you need to do, and a lot of there's very I maybe memory is not correct here, and people can let us know. But I don't think there's many I need to wait around here. There is in the first Metal Gear Solid when you're in the cellar and you kind of have to use the ketchup bottle to make it look like you've died. So you kind of have to wait, and if that fails, you have to wait for Otacon to come along and or for Grey Fox to open the door, right? So
Hmm.
there is waiting in that respect, but that you're still involved in the gameplay. It's not you're not it's not the same thing. You're not kind of waiting for this person to tell you the thing that you already know what you need to do to go. So is it just that the method of storytelling has changed, and in that respect has maybe hurt gaming to some degree?
Yeah, I think so because I think as well with certain games, for instance, I'm going through the Gears of War games again, and we take even just the first one. It jumps you into the action pretty quickly. Same with like the Resident Evil games, same with Dead Space remake. So there are games nowadays, and I think they're bringing this back a bit with the PS5. Stellar Blade does the same, where it gets in the action pretty quickly. But then there's just these other games. Red Dead 2, I think, is another one where I think you started it and you got bored and decided not to continue playing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad start, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Red Dead 2 does not have a great start because it's too slow.
Mm-hmm.
And so while this is an incredible fucking game, when I go to replay this, I'm like, oh yeah, this snowy bit. It's so fucking slow and long.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta get through that. And before it kicks off to allow you to go explore, you have to trudge through all that. And so I think that was the thing that sort of was happening in the PS4 and sort of bled a bit into the PS5 era, where they almost made the starts of games like this slow trudging moment rather than leaving it later, like with the first Metal Gear Solid, where the only time you really have to wait is in a prison cell.
Yeah, I think if memory serves correct, I think it is really the only. Well, I suppose you have to wait as well to do the whole PAL card, kind of temperature change thing. I suppose there's a bit of waiting there, but it's like it's active waiting. It's not waiting, for the thing to let you pass, kind of thing. It's
Right.
waiting is
It's
part of
you put the PAL
the
card
puzzle.
in, you
Yeah,
waited for its temperature to change, and then you take it back out. Like so, but it's also later in the game. They're not telling you to do that at the very start of the game before you can even start messing around in the game.
yeah.
Like you were saying, I think the last episode, San Andreas, one of your favorite things about that
It's
was
just jump straight in.
just messing around, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think definitely with the PS4 era, I thought the games started to lose the aspect of being a game as they focused too much on trying to be an Oscar performing movie.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose, yeah, because like Horizon is another game that actually took me a while to get into. So Horizon Forbidden Dawn, that's the first one.
Zero Dawn.
Zero
Horizon
Dawn,
Zero Dawn.
Forbidden West. Got it. I haven't played Forbidden West actually. I just played a small bit at the beginning of it and was just like, yeah, fuck that. But the first one, that actually took me a while to get into because that's another game where the beginning of that actually is. It's actually really, really good from a um, performance capture, animation. Like it's like a Pixar movie. It's that good in terms of its storytelling. But from a gameplay point of view, it's actually pretty damn boring, and it takes a while for that game, I think, to. You have to pretty much get to a point where you're going to the end of these trials, and then there's like the corrupted machine comes into your village, and you have to take that out, and then after that they go, okay, there you go, here's the open world.
Yeah, it's
That's
quite
like
like a
2 hours into the game, maybe more.
give or take. It's quite a long sort of
So
almost really long tutorial. Like it's a
pretty much, yeah,
prologue.
yeah. And it was only
Um,
after once I got past that bit, I'm like, actually, this game is very good. Like
hmm.
once I was allowed to go out and just explore. So maybe it's there's a kind of a transitionary period, I think, between when in narrative based games going from a linear experience to an open world experience, because we kind of had those were two separate things. You had an open world game where you could do anything you want,
Mm-hmm.
which I think the likes of Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild are still holding on to. Right, so the From Software games are very much holding on to that. It's like kind of an open. I know not all of them are open world, but Elden Ring is. And I suppose Bloodborne to some degrees very open linear, because you can kind of come
Yeah,
back through.
most From Software games have been more like Bloodborne, where it's open linear.
Yeah,
You like dungeon crawling, you coming around, you find a shortcut.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean,
yeah.
type
It
of
kind
thing.
of there's elements of it a little bit like the way Resi 4 used to be as well,
Mm,
or any of the Resident Evil games, so you can kind of backtrack and stuff like that.
yeah.
And it's so that doesn't have any. I know people are going to say there is story to it. It's like, yeah, okay, there is, but it's not delivered to you as these mad, MGS4 length cutscenes.
No.
So that kind of holds true. So maybe that's why those type of games are so goddamn popular. Is that this is a game that focuses purely on game
Yeah,
versus.
they're very good to replay because the minute you finish the game, the credits roll, you start the game pretty much straight away to put you back into the game, and you're in it. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you just there's no faffing about. You do the game again.
So maybe
Um,
these the narrative based games, the likes of anything that's coming from Sony's first party, um, needs maybe there's something to learn from the likes of what From Software are doing, and it's not let's make our games more difficult, because perhaps what makes those games so engaging. Yeah, I'm sure the difficulty is a huge aspect of it, but there's people actually complaining right now about the Elden Ring DLC being too hard. So I
mm,
don't think it's about difficulty. I think it's literally just that people like gameplay.
Mm.
Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are incredibly popular. Both of those games are not difficult. I mean, there's difficult aspects to them, but they're not difficult games. They just offer lots of great gameplay, and it
Mm.
doesn't it doesn't plaster you with a fuck ton of cutscenes to have to sift through. So I think a lot of these story-driven games just need to kind of calm down on the Oscar baits and just give us some goddamn gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, like they you can have your Oscar performance cutscenes. That's no bother. But yeah, jump into the gameplay quicker, I suppose.
Mm.
And on top of that, if you're going to have open world aspects, do it a bit quicker. Don't have us trudging through snow for 2 hours and then for another hour going around on a wagon for a really slow amount of time. Um,
Yeah, because that's GTA 5 didn't quite work for me either because of that. The kind of heat style intro
right.
was so it was cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's just when I think of GTA, I just want to. Yeah, I have an expectation of what GTA should be, and that didn't feel like it. It kind of took a bit for me to get into the bit that felt like GTA.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it does take a bit of time before you feel comfortable. I felt as well, at least, that like even for a good while, because I was just playing as Michael, which is the family man,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
that I was like obeying by the rules of the road. So it took a bit of time for me to even feel comfortable to break the rules of the road and
Yeah, I
start
think it's a
speeding and
little strange. I think GTA 4 kind of introduced the idea of the guy you're playing as is kind of just getting by and not really that much of a bad guy.
mm,
And 5, like, yeah, you're playing as villains, but they're kind of oddly likable. Like, of course, the guy you're going to play as is likable. Like even CJ can be likable, but not likable as in he has deep down a good heart necessarily. It's just likable. He's entertaining to watch. Like, so Trevor would be the entertaining one of GTA 5. The other two less so.
yes.
Um, yeah. So I, I suppose what we're kind of getting at with this topic is that there's been such a shift, and we probably didn't realize it necessarily as players ourselves. We do tend to gear towards story driven experiences. We tend to get a lot of entertainment from that, but at the cost of losing control as a player. Would that be fair?
Because like yeah, because like how many games would you have gone back to replay recently?
Um. Well, okay. So this was what I was gonna mention was that do you reckon games are less about wanting to start again, right? So in the like PS2 era and so on, like games actually weren't that large. So
No.
we would just load it up again, maybe a new game plus kind of situation. You'd have the things that you completed the game with, and you go through it again.
Mm.
Uh, of course, there are games today that offer that, but it seems as though games now are all about giving you uh, added content. So instead of starting the game again, it's like we're going to give you more to do, whether that's through updates or DLC. It's all about prolonging the experience as opposed to allowing you to go through that experience again.
Mm.
Uh, so there's not many games that I would have gone back to play purely because they would offer a new experience.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably why they do give DLCs, probably because they realize no one can replay this. So yeah, we'll give DLCs while lots of people then buy DLCs. It's new content, but like we take into account Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't think it got a DLC, but I don't think it needed a DLC because
Oh yeah.
game was so that game had such is a PS4 game that had such a good balance of story and gameplay
Mm-hmm.
because you have that train sequence,
Yeah.
which is great. Jump straight into it. You're doing the reactor bombing mission, so you're in the combat pretty quickly, and then it sort of breaks it down, allows you to roam around freely, and it just I think that healthily balances it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's very important. I think like for instance with The Witcher 3, you and Chris couldn't get into it because you thought the onboarding
Yeah, it
was
takes forever to get into it.
it takes forever to get into it. So I think that's very important as well. As if you're doing a story driven game, that the onboarding you can slow down later, but get us into the action fast.
Yeah, the
Or
pacing of it
get
is
us
very
into
important.
get us into the moment. We can have the slow story driven Oscar performances with like a Quantic Dream game. That's
Sure.
fine because that's what we're playing the game for, is to see how this movie unfolds. But I think when it's going to be something like a fantasy or something like that, we want Alduin crashing down to burn because we have to mention Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
So, so like that's a big explosive happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you're out of Helgen, go explore, go wherever the hell you want, do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, but I think as well as that, from a game designer's perspective, it's probably a huge challenge to, like, if you just make a game, that is a 12-hour experience, but you offer like, okay, so that you get to replay it or whatever.
Mm.
If a game designer is coming at that today, they're making the replay value a major component of the game. So it's like
Mm.
you play through it again, maybe to experience it different. So like a Heavy Rain game, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's that you are playing through it because things might change as you go through it, and that's not what we're really talking about. That's more like, what we're thinking about is like if you go to see a great movie in a cinema and you come out of it, you're like, that was awesome. I want to watch that again, right? That's kind of
Hmm.
what you're talking about, because like when you watch a film, with greater concentration, you might spot things that you didn't see before. That's kind
Right.
of more what we're
Yes.
talking about. So nowadays, like a developer, I think, would be making a game in the viewpoint of trying to prolong the experience. So our games now are 60 hours long, even if it's maybe story driven or whatever, right? They're
Mm.
they're they're 40 to 60 hours long, because they need you to keep playing this game and not move on to the next thing. So it needs to be
Yeah.
long enough to hold your attention so that by the time the DLC comes out, it's like, okay, like you likely now have are well, people finish games now in a weekend, so but
Yeah.
the point is that with the DLC, with the updates, it's always about trying to keep them engaged, because games are competing with more than just. I mean, there's more games now than ever because of you can independently, produce a game now. You don't need a big publisher. You're competing with multiple platforms, whether that's not just in the console space but also on mobile. And you're also competing against Netflix. You're competing against Amazon Prime. You're competing against YouTube. Like, you're competing against Spotify, right? All of these things you're competing against all of these other things that can take your attention away from the game and money away from the game. So I
Mm.
think that probably is why the design of the games have shifted away from. Because if we think back to the PS2, like, what was the biggest competitor to Devil May Cry?
Probably just another PS2 game.
Probably just another PS2 game or a GameCube game or an Xbox game.
Yeah.
Like, that's all they had to worry about. They didn't have to worry about all the streaming services now that they have to compete against. So I think,
Never. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's probably why it has shifted, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do agree that there are moments in story driven games where it's just not, respecting you as a player if you know what to do. So one of the complaints that came up, online, was the yellow handhelds on walls in Final
Right. Yeah. That.
Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Right. Which was, if you actually look at now, loads of different games have the yellow
Yeah,
outlines.
we call it the Naughty Dog Yellow. I don't think they were the first to do it, but
I think For me personally, the first time I saw them was Horizon. Maybe I'm just forgetting
Horizon?
about Uncharted.
I would have saw it in definitely Uncharted and Mirror's Edge. I think could have been like the first time I would have seen them.
That was red in Mirror's Edge.
Were
Everything
were they
flashed red.
always red? I thought handhelds were yellow.
No, because she sees them as red.
All right,
There's a
okay.
lot of yellow in the game,
Yeah,
but the yeah, it just I thought Uncharted was white. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe there
it is
was
white,
yellow.
but when you get to the bunker in
Sorry,
it's
yes.
yellow because it's supposed to be like hazard paint nearly. Like it's
Mm,
really well integrated. Like so it's white on the cliffs because when if you scrape an edge of a rock, it kind of shows up lighter, so they're kind of showing
yeah.
it that way. Same with bricks and so on. It might be a kind of an orangey color, and then when
Mm.
it gets to the industrial style stuff, it's yellow because it's hazard paint. So it's really really well integrated into it, which is kind of why yellow makes no fucking sense to be on the side of a cliff in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
No, true. I do get that, and I think I saw another complaint when we're talking about that, like the kind of handheld for gamers is Horizon Forbidden West does it, and I think a few other games do it, where I know this is not replayability, but it's just do with
Well, it's respect for the player.
yeah, respect for the player, where she walks into a room and goes, "Oh, maybe I have to go up that ladder." And it's like, I don't even know where
Mm.
the ladder is. I just walked up the where's this? Now I'm trying to find this ladder. Where the hell is that?
Yeah, and I
So,
think the Tomb Raider games start to do that a little bit too, don't they?
um, I didn't really notice it that much with the first one. I'm assuming you're talking about the Survivor trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice that much with the first one. The second one, I actually just stopped playing. I kind of got bored with that one, and I haven't gone back to the third one. She probably doesn't the third one a good bit.
Well, I know in the third one you can adjust the difficulty of like puzzles and things like that, which is a really cool feature.
Mm.
Um, so maybe that's something that designers need to look at. But like The Last of Us, definitely, The Last of Us will be like, oh, like you'd be trying to figure out what to do here. There's clearly a puzzle, but they'll just tell
Mm.
you what to do, and it's like, well, where's the challenge in this? I just have to go over there, hold a button to bring the bin over to that wall, and we hop over it. Like, where is the challenge exactly? You could have not told me. Let
Yeah,
me
like
figure it out.
the fun in those little puzzles is it's not hard. Really, you're just trying to find the bin.
Yeah.
And then once you find it, you bring it over. But then when you go to replay it, you're like, well, I know where it is, blah, 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 get it, and you speed run it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
but
do
it's
get
like,
that part where
what's the point in the gameplay? Like, what
when
is
they're
the
just
point
telling
of it?
you,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. What is the point of it? Because there's like, when I think of a puzzle, there's a couple of things, from a challenge perspective. There's like flexibility. So there's your ability to, well, maybe flexibility is not the right term, but it's the speed in which you can react to something. So it's like reactionary, I suppose. That's like meeting the timing of something. Then there's an actual like solvable, like for it's a challenge for your brain, not a challenge for tapping or whatever. Um, and I just don't understand what those puzzles are actually trying to do. Like if it was okay, there's a horde running after you, so now it's time based essentially. And you have to pull the thing over and get up and maybe even bounce between dragging it, letting go, shooting a few, and then dragging again. Okay, so that's kind of reactionary. It's not that. It's just drag the thing over. And it's not a brain puzzle because they just tell you what to do. So I actually don't understand what the whole purpose of those moments in games like that actually are. It's the same in like God of War, I guess, which is mash a button or press a button to lift a door. Like what is the point of it? Like
Well,
uh,
I'm pretty sure that's just loading the next area.
it is, yeah. Is Ragnarok on PS4? I think it is, isn't it?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. So that's obviously a design that's carried over from a previous generation.
Hmm.
But we are seeing things like that. I think Rebirth has it. has things like that. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth.
Oh, probably.
Isn't there like a thing where you have to like press the button correctly or um hold a button to like I think there is there. I remember interacting when I was interacting with the game. There's something that just felt a bit like this feels old in design, and we're running SSDs on these hardware right now. What are you trying to load?
Yeah. I can't remember specifically, but I do feel that there probably was something. I don't think the doors looked that good in Rebirth. If memory serves me correct, I don't think they got the doors exactly right.
I don't. I nothing.
They're not as bad as like
No,
when
yeah.
remake was first out, but I don't think they.
Texture wise, there's nothing that really stands out to me that's bad in Rebirth. I think it's a very pretty looking game. Um, but I just mean from there's there are some games that there's these old legacy kind of gameplay things like that kind of press and circle at the right time, quick time events or holding things like that's stuff that came from the PS2 era, and they should be dead at this point. Like there's no reason for to include them. So yeah, so respecting the player so that when we do want to play it again, we don't have to wait for the thing that's unskippable to let us past, I guess.
Well, Junon Parade has the buttons.
No, yeah, that's different. That's more of a kind of a Guitar Hero rhythm.
Okay,
that's
no,
a
fair
miniature
enough,
rhythm
yeah,
game. So that's not what I
fair enough. No, I was just
was
wondering.
thinking of.
Yeah, Rebirth. Yeah, that's a game that's actually hard to replay. But they do have like they do. Well, I don't know if it was a hard to replay or I just went on to Stellar Blade. I don't know if it's one or the other. But they actually did a really nice thing where when you've completed side quests and you go back to replay it, you don't have to replay those side quests. They're counted as already done.
Okay, cool. This is like
So
a new game plus kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So when so everything you've collected, so let's say turn on those towers, you don't have to do that again. It's done
Okay, that's neat.
when you get there.
I like
Yeah,
that.
so that's a neat thing. So I like seeing that in games because again, I'm going to go back to I think Capcom with Resident Evil has just perfected the story art with the gameplay to me at the moment. They have a lovely balance as well as not having a game that is 40 to 60 hours. So anyone could play
Yeah.
through and clear the game. And if they're a bit like meh, well that's okay because it didn't take up too much of their time. But you could have some games that are 40, 60 hours and never even get to the end because they're just like
Out of each of the modern Resident Evil, so from 2 onwards, because I think they're planning to remake 1 again, aren't they? I think
I would love
heard
that.
something.
I would love
Maybe
that.
not, but I thought I heard something like that. Out of the modern ones from 2 onwards, which one do you think lengthwise is like the sweet spot?
Oh, okay. Not tree. Tree is way too short. Do I include 7 and 8 as well in this? Yeah,
Yeah. So from 2 onwards. Wait, no, which came first, 2 or 7?
7.
7. Sorry, 7 onwards.
7, 7, 2, 3, 8, 4.
Yeah, they know
Like
they're
fucking,
just as
they're
good
like
as
George Lucas.
they're actually they're just as good as Xbox accounting.
Oh, jeez, which one was the best one for
No, lengthwise,
I think
just which was
yeah,
a
yeah.
sweet spot for length.
Probably 2 or 8.
Yeah, 8 was pretty
8
good.
was good.
Was
8 was
8
good.
longer than 7, or
8's longer than 7, yeah.
it didn't feel it though? 7, I to me 7 felt longer than it actually is.
I think with 7, because it's such a small, isolated location, it does get to a
And
point of the
way
game where like,
scarier.
uh, I think it's only scary really with Jack, and then once Jack is done,
Really?
you're yeah, yeah, because I think you get away from the mom very easily.
Yeah, but
I think
she's
if I was
still
stuck with the,
terrifying though.
she's creepy. Well, especially her physics on her face.
And the bit when she turns into like a weird insect demon thing.
Nah,
Like
that's just a fight though.
it is, but it's still. I think 7 is certainly scarier than 8.
Hmm.
Do you think 8's scarier?
Got that baby, man.
That was fine. That was
Yeah, I
fine.
don't know what's
No
wrong with you,
problem. No problem.
baby.
It's creepy,
Yeah,
but
yeah. 7 probably was scarier first time playing it because it's the first time dealing with those types of enemies.
mm,
Then in 2 you had Mr. X. Now that was way scarier.
I haven't
um,
gotten that far. I think I just he may have just appeared.
and then with 8, Lady of the Dimitrescu, you're like, this is a walk in the fucking park. I know what I have to do here. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She
Whatever.
to me
You're gonna
was
follow.
scarier than anything else in that game.
Mommy Milkers, like
Yeah, it's something about the
the
thing.
internet got very weird with her.
Yeah, it was something to do with the constantly being chased by something that you cannot take down. That to me is scarier than fucking anything. Like so, like the Outlast entirety of Outlast is like to me
I could
one of
never
the
play
scariest
Outlast.
games ever.
No. Yeah.
Alien Isolation, can't do it.
Fuck that.
Can't
The
fucking
fact
do it.
that the alien learns to ignore the fire, nah, fuck that. That happened to me.
Yeah, I think Alien Isolation is a game that could definitely learn to be. If they ever make another one, like proper another one, not the VR one,
Mm.
they definitely need to learn from Capcom in terms of what a length of an experience should be from a game
Especially
like
for
that.
horror. Especially for horror. You don't want to be overstaying your welcome with horror, you
Yeah,
know?
I think like I don't know if I got to the end of that, I would want to replay it. I don't think so.
No,
It's
I'd
just
say that'd be a
it's
pain.
way too long,
Hmm.
and there's nothing. Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? That what makes for a great replayable game is collectibles, and I
Yes, I
think
was going to bring that up.
and I
Yeah.
think now I don't know if it's a bad thing. I'm kind of torn between these. It's like if you want a really good replayable game, you make collectibles like the treasures in Uncharted or the frogs in MGS3 or whatever stuff like that. But I also really like the trophy hunter in me loves the way in modern games that you can actually complete all of the collectibles before you clear the game, and they'll actually give you aids to find the stuff. So whether it's getting everything in Horizon, everything in God of War, everything in
Oh,
uh
I heard AIDS, but just the other AIDS popped into my head.
okay.
I don't know why.
Now and because the Resident Evil 7 has collectibles, they're kind of hard to come by, and you kind of and so does Resident Evil 4, the newest one. And what I like about the games like Horizon, which or Spider-Man, which actually tells you where everything is, like you can pretty much
That's
just,
so nice.
but it's really
Brilliant.
because why not? I'm gonna look it up anyway, so just put it in the fucking game, So I am
Yeah.
torn between that. I like that and Ghost of Tsushima is another one. I can just get everything within one gameplay playthrough.
Mm.
That's really really good. The other way though gives me a reason to play it again. So which would you prefer?
Um, I'll do you one better, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Collectibles are great.
Hmm.
Challenges are
Or
better.
shit. What do you mean? What do you mean by challenges though?
Well, things like uh when you're like playing Resident Evil, right? And you have the collectibles,
Hmm.
but then also complete the game in a certain
No,
amount
I
of
fucking hate it.
time. Why not? Why do you hate that shit? That's so fun.
I hate it because
Because the completionist, then you realize you have to do all that shit now as well. And it's gonna have that one challenge that's really rock hard, and you're just gonna not gonna be arsed with it, so then you can't platinum the game.
so there's a trophy in Wolfenstein.
Okay.
I believe it's Wolfenstein. To complete the game on the nightmare difficulty. I don't know if that's the name of it, but it's something of the equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's it. I think it's just completed on that level, that difficulty, right? Now, they could just say, okay, you don't need to complete it on that particular difficulty, and that would solve the problem, right? So this is purely a problem with Wolfenstein, really, than anything else. But nightmare difficulty in that game, if you die, sorry, if you get shot once, I believe, you're dead. And if you die, you start at the beginning of the game again.
Hmm.
It's like near impossible to complete that. It's like so punishingly difficult. And I don't think it's fair to lock out certain um, unlockables or things behind a not necessarily but a challenge of some sort, right? Because you run the risk of well, like for example, me, you, and Chris, we all like to enjoy experiences at various different challenges. And if I play a game on one difficulty and you play a game on another difficulty, I don't think you should be punished by what you can get from the game. I'm getting enough enjoyment out of playing on a higher difficulty alone. That's it. I don't It's only because I enjoy the rhythm of the game at that difficulty.
Hmm.
I don't think I should be rewarded any higher for doing that because I chose to do that. That's you know, and also from an accessibility perspective, there's going to be players out there that just physically can't do it. Why are they being punished from being able to access it? So from challenges like that where it's like a speed run thing, I think there are players out there who obviously enjoy speedrunning. And there's people who build a whole YouTube and Twitch, the whole thing from speedrunning.
Mm-hmm.
The joy is getting to complete it within the highest time anyway. That's it. Why reward them any further necessarily? That locks out every other fucking player.
Well, I never thought about it. I was just using that as an example.
All right. Well, I just think that challenges aren't necessarily a great way to do replaying. I think it's maybe a cheap way to do it. It's like you can offer, you know, MGS4 is a good example where you if you play the game on is it Big Boss Hard or something like that. I think it's Big Boss Hard, and you clear it under 5 hours.
With like
You
no deaths and never being spotted, and
yeah
you
yeah
don't
yeah.
kill anyone.
Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's pretty extreme actually the
It's very extreme.
requirements.
It's
I think then you get a face mask or something like that.
like Big Boss's face or
Yeah,
something.
something like that, and that's required for the platinum. It's like really
Yeah.
cheeky, right? It's like you look through the platinum list and it's like the trophy is to unlock all face masks, and you think that sounds fine, yeah, because you can purchase most of them. But that one last face mask is hidden behind that particular difficulty set, and it's really
Mm.
cheeky. And it's very unfortunate that you'd have something locked behind. Now, you might have people in the comments saying, "Well, just get good." But again, just think about those that have accessibility issues.
Hmm.
They can't just get good because that's like obviously the problem.
Right. Yeah.
The game again needs to respect the player.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I was just bringing up challenges as just a thing. I suppose like another element that can be a good Dead Space remake does a good thing for replayability, which is once you replay the game, you clear it, you replay it, you get these particular collectibles. I think just one on each mission.
Okay.
Not on each mission. One on each mission within the Ishimura. You place all these items on a table. A thing happens, glitches. You go clear the game, you get an alternate ending, which I think is a nice.
That's pretty cool.
That's a cool one as well. So that's I suppose like that's a challenge, I suppose. You are getting rewarded, but there's no accessibility issue there
Mm.
because you can still play it on the easiest difficulty and you still just get everything.
Yeah.
Um,
so there's like conditional. Like MGS3 does it as well, isn't it? It's like the different ways that you can defeat the end will give you
Mm,
different cutscenes. There's
different
also,
instance.
I think, three different uh cutscenes for when you're fighting Ocelot at the end. I think
Yeah,
there's three different ways you can do that fight.
it's you shoot him with the bullet,
He
or you
sh-
pick up the revolver without the bullet, so he shoots you,
yeah, or
or
you
you
miss.
you miss or
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
yeah. We're just like helping you out here now when the remake uh
comes out.
comes
Yeah,
out. You know exactly what to do unless they change all that.
I doubt it.
I doubt it very, very much. Seems like a copy and paste.
Pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
But that would be a fun game to replay. Like Stellar Blade's a fun game to replay, and actually, when you're going back into it, it has new outfits to get. And then they
Perfect.
actually release an update with more outfits. And I think there's a DLC coming out. And actually, I saw a report where there's going to be sequels that did very surprisingly well with all the controversy surrounding it. So
Hmm.
that's,
Wasn't that controversial though, was it? I don't think it was actually.
well,
Stellar Blade is
there
the
was,
Hawk Tuah of video games. To be fair, I think the
it
internet
is,
embraced it.
but I was probably, articles, the way they blow things out of proportion.
I could
So
think of one publisher that may.
yeah, there was definitely some people who had it's very funny actually with that. We're getting a little sidetracked, but sure, why not? Where some people are giving out because it's like, how dare you have a sexy character in this video game,
Okay.
right? And then other people gave it out and were like, why are these clothes edited to cover up more?
The two
So it's just like,
extremes.
yeah, two extremes of it. It's
Yeah.
like, how about we actually just enjoy the game and
It would be. I wonder what, like, because obviously we hear a lot more opinions. I mean, God knows we're giving our own right now, but
hmm
because of the internet, it just gives you access to more people's like frame thoughts and stuff like that. If that was available back during the PS1, PS2 era, I wonder what they would say about games back then. I don't think they'd be as greatly received as we would remember.
Hmm. Well,
Especially
we're gonna,
anything done by Kojima.
yeah. I was actually I was actually thinking about voice acting. I don't think.
Oh, sure, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There
but
would
yeah, I know what
definitely
you mean.
be a ton of complaints about representation and so on
No,
in
but
gaming.
in saying that, like Hideo Kojima was still very like we take the first Metal Gear Solid.
Mm.
Uh I mean, he had it that the greatest sniper in the world was a woman. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't have seen that often back then. But then, of course, she has to wear a skin tight army fatigue outfit and have her zip down so that her
Yeah.
cleavage is on show. Or even Eva, who walks up and then specifically
Gets
does it.
naked essentially.
And then you have to hold, well, you don't have to, but the option's there to hold L1 so that Snake is just,
That's on you, buddy.
yeah,
That's
that's on
totally
you.
on you.
If you don't, the camera is obviously panning around and you just see Snake actually there talking to him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that's him just taking the piss out of men who do that though. Because he's often like
I don't
a
know.
lot of his stuff has satire.
It does. It does. But I think yeah, whatever. I'm not going to get into it. But the point is that like I just think that it just seems like there's a lot more complaints now, but I think there probably would have been way more back then.
Probably, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Mortal Kombat.
Oh yeah, fucking Soul Calibur.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
lots of fighting games, to be honest. A
Any
lot of
of them,
them were
dead or
quite,
alive, for
yeah.
sure. Um, so in terms of like games now, so you asked me if there's any game recently that I went back to replay, and I was just saying that no, just because that they tend to keep adding more stuff to it. Is there a game in recent years that you've gone back to replay and you felt like this was actually a really good replay experience?
It's the reason I keep bringing up the Capcom Resident Evil games.
So any of the Resident Evils, basically, that's the
Yeah,
formula.
Yeah, do you remember that time I cleared Resident Evil 3 about 5 times in one day?
Yeah.
That game was actually just it's too short. I should not have been able to do that. That is a sick thing that I did. But yeah, like that. I remember back PS3 days. The Uncharted games. I was able to just replay the
Yeah,
shit out
yeah.
of Dead Space remake. I replayed that. Um, Dark Souls 3 and Demon Souls. I was able to replay, cleared twice.
Hmm.
Still enjoyed them. I would love to get them on PC to mod them to make them easier. It's probably my biggest complaint about those games. I know it makes no sense, but it's just like sometimes it's just like I just it's like that, that moment in
Uh,
Superbad
yeah,
when Michael Cera's character's playing that video game. It's like why would they do this? Why did they make it so you die? This is bullshit.
yeah,
We
yeah.
had some
Okay.
reaction to that. Like,
But
yeah,
it's like,
sometimes
what's right? So if you could make them easier, then why bother play them? Like, what do they offer outside of the
um
challenge? Like,
no, I'm not saying like a one hit kill.
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
saying
But
just take
yes,
it down a notch, like
okay. But what do they offer?
great level design, great exploration, great combat, actually. It is
Okay,
very good combat. Great boss battles. But
okay,
the boss battles can get a bit annoying when you've died like 20, 10 or 12 times because you're like, oh, let's fucking die.
okay.
So like if you actually take them, they're really great fantasy games,
So I keep hearing.
and then but they're locked behind, well,
Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, I know I can't
accessibility
say much
because
because I've only played Bloodborne, but I just I could not see anything from that game that was apart from the creature design. But I can just look that up online. I haven't. I don't. I cannot connect with them, and it's outside of the challenge, right? I just do not understand what else they can offer, and I think that's what is the challenge is what essentially is the fun in the game. And if you remove that, then I don't think the game really has anything to offer. That's me personally, but uh, maybe others totally disagree, including yourself.
well,
Um,
I'm sure more people are probably going to agree with you and disagree with me, and they're going like, what the fuck are you talking about? Make those games harder because there are mods to make
I
the
know
games harder.
there's mods to make it harder for sure.
Which I'm just like, what is wrong with those sadists or
Yeah,
masochists, really?
I don't
Because
know.
they're making it
I
harder for
just kind of feel a
themselves.
bit like if you're going to, it's like okay, I want to be able to play from software games, make it easier. It's almost like wanting to play Tetris, but remove I don't know, make it way slower or something like that, right? It's kind of like what you just you kind of like what else does Tetris have to offer other than just be able to move the bricks within the time frame that it gives you? You know, it's like oh, well, I just love the shapes.
Ah, those shapes are really good. They're pretty good shapes. I don't know. I would say the games have more. I've played them. I've played them with the challenge.
Sure.
So now I just would like to play it.
What you would like then, perhaps, and maybe more games could offer this. I think this would be a neat feature actually for games in general, is to offer a tour mode, kind of similar to the way Assassin's Creed does, which allows you just to be able to explore the environment that was designed without anything taking you out of the game. Would that be cool?
Depends on the game.
Yeah, I suppose there's no need to do that in like an Uncharted game, but you're just talking about
No.
oh, there's a you can kind of do this in the Tomb Raider game. I did not realize this until I was like pretty maybe halfway through, maybe more than halfway through. This is the Tomb Raider remaster games.
All right.
You can go into photo mode,
Okay.
and then you can send that camera around the map freely. You can go around that entire map freely with that camera.
Okay, so you get to see what's ahead of
Yeah.
you.
Which I tell you
That's
one thing, it's actually it's a brilliant fucking feature when there's kind of a water level in it. Well, there's fucking water in every level, but there's one in particular where it's like you're in the sewers. This is the first one. You're in the sewers and you need to drain the water at different levels. And there's like crocodiles and rats and there's all kinds of things. And you need to get various different keys to get up to a certain bit. And I got to a bit where I'm like, I feel like I've explored absolutely everywhere here. And I'm going around in circles. I just do not know where to go. And I use that photo mode then to just basically, because you are moving around quicker than you could run.
Right, yeah.
So I'm essentially doing what I would do anyway. I'm just doing it faster. I'm going around everywhere that I can go, but I'm doing it at a quicker pace. And then I eventually was like, Jesus, there it is. Okay. So then I quit it, and then I just run to that spot and get the thing that I want so I can move forward. It's a fantastic feature. It's really fucking good. I want that. I want a free range photo mode added to.
Yeah, I find the
specific
photo
puzzle games.
modes are very can be very hit and miss in games.
Yeah, they're not great lately. The latest ones are, yeah. I think the PS4 era had brilliant photo modes.
I think you took some good photos in like The Last of Us or something. I
Yeah,
think you,
yeah.
you edited them quite well. Yeah, I did lately. I'm just kind of like,
Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth has very shit photo mode, which is
yeah,
weird considering that's a
one
kind
of
of
the side quests.
yeah, it's a feature in the game. It's like find a spot, take a great photo. And it's like I fucking would if you gave me the controls for it. I would take a deadly photo, but I'm so locked to what you're giving me here.
Yeah, it's not great, and then like the filters are fine, and yeah, just like even the all like the exposure and the depth of field, all that stuff is like,
Spider-Man has a fantastic photo mode. Really good.
I've
You can
yet to
get
really use that. I haven't really used that much. It's
yeah,
probably a
you can
shame.
do some really cool shit in Spider-Man with it. God of War is okay.
I took some nice photos, but yeah, I like the one where I think you take away all the color except for red.
Oh
It's a
yeah, it's
very
a cool feature.
that's a
It's a very
nice
cool
one.
feature.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
So I
but
think like games, like yeah, with the whole what's the issue? Like it could be a me thing to be honest, where I'm just kind of like, all right, I've played this game, I'm done. Maybe it's the length of games that are stopping it from being fun to jump back into because you're a little bit like, oh fuck yeah, I remember this game is Jesus, it's fucking 100 hours long here, and so or it's a feature thing. It's a thing that like collecting treasures in Uncharted or like photo mode to mess around and stuff.
I think it's kind of a combination for all of those, isn't it? Like I think if we were to summarize what we just were discussing here, it's like what we seem to lack is when there's games that are story driven, maybe they're open a little bit or they are an open world game. The onboard experience is too long. We just don't jump straight into it. It needs to be like Arkham Asylum. It's like you have a cutscene, you're straight in, you're kicking people's ass. Like that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, and just let the story unfold as the game unfolds.
Yeah. Just let's keep moving.
Hmm.
So that would be thing number one. So it's like if I jump back into the game, I don't want to have to go, oh fuck, okay, I have to watch this movie before we get going. I want to just jump straight into it. The second is when there's things that happen in game, especially if it's a puzzle, allow me as a player to just be able to do the thing and not wait for an NPC to finish their dialogue. I just need to do the thing.
Also, don't tell me what to do before I've even entered the room.
Yeah, shut up. And then the third is give me a reason to replay it. I think that's it, really, isn't it? It's like there's kind of a trend, and it's like, okay, this is not all games, and I think if anyone listen to this, we recognize that the likes of online games like Fortnite and so on, they're not story-driven games. They are a different thing, and they're kind of games as a service that keep updating and adding new things. There adds endless gameplay. And what we are referring to is something like a Rockstar experience or a Naughty Dog experience or even Santa Monica. Um, and even Xbox has been kind of trying to do this too, right? And it could be the reason why they're maybe failing in some of these aspects is that I think if you think that a single player narrative driven experience has to be an award winning HBO style movie with a sprinkle of gameplay, I think you need to go back and rethink what a game is.
Yeah, because I think that was one of the biggest issues people had with the Order 1886. What I would
Yeah,
love for them to make a fucking second one of
they
that.
definitely deserve to make a sequel.
You know, that was the thing that people gave out about was that there was
There's no
not enough
gameplay.
gameplay.
Yeah,
No, there's no gameplay. Now, in fairness, when I went to play it, I was like, "Well, does everyone give it out about? There's loads of gameplay." But I heard like the game was like 5 hours long or some shit, and I was like, "This is really long." Or it was not really long. To me, it was a good length. But I do
yeah,
understand where I suppose people were coming from because I think that was the start of it. That was the start of when games started. Those single player story narrative games were becoming more cinematic than they were gameplay. Um,
yeah. I'd say we have The Last of Us to both praise and blame for the direction in which games went.
Mm.
It,
that the first one had a healthy balance.
yeah, the first one was just, and we've talked
Yeah.
about that at length. I think we always give that a 10 out of 10. I don't think we would
Hmm.
drop that bar for any reason really. But I think from that onwards, then it was like, oh, everything needs to be like that, and it was like amplifying what made that great. Even the
Hmm.
second one, I think, uh, didn't get the balance right.
No, that was a weird one where it was a bit like, okay, gameplay, you can stop now for a second and give me a cutscene. For me personally, I just thought like,
Yeah, but there is a lot of that. Like, I'm waiting for you to shut up so I can go over there.
yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of that too.
and it's and that's the one I think that's really. Uh, what am I to do here? Oh, actually, you just told me it's over there. I gotta
Mm,
I gotta go do that thing. Right? It doesn't. It just it tells you exactly what to do, and you're kind of like, I don't understand what the challenge is here. Like, why even put that puzzle here? Like
yeah, if
that
you're just
makes
gonna tell
no
me, yeah.
sense, like whatsoever. Yeah, that game, which obviously that's a very controversial one. Some people absolutely love it, some people absolutely hate it, and I think we were very indifferent with that game. I'm more in the I don't like it camp, and it has nothing to do with the reasons that people seem to dislike that game for. It's purely down to these type of reasons, which is I feel disrespected as a player when I'm playing it, and the motivations are not my own. They're these characters, and I don't connect with that, and it's too long for what it is. Like,
Very long.
I don't understand how Spider-Man feels shorter as a game. Like, that shouldn't be possible. But I think for the type of experience that it is, it's very, very long. Even though I think Uncharted 4 might be. Did we talk about this before? That it could be a similar length?
I think it's similar
I
length.
think it's a similar length, but
I
there's
think
something
we
to do
did
with the
talk about it. Yeah.
pacing of it. Is like, um, I think if you're having, I think horror games like you said, Capcom seems to, apart from 3, they've managed to get the timing correct. I think any game that puts your heart rate at such a height, and the movement is obviously, it's a stealth experience, so the pacing is not fast action.
Mm.
The overall length of the experience probably shouldn't be too long, because there's only so much that you can keep a player in that
Right,
kind of
like
mode.
Alien Isolation, like that's
That's
a
too long.
really long game, and it's just too long. It's like no, this should be short, exhilarating, exciting. I don't sleep, but also I can't wait to get back into it, and then you clear it in like a week or something like that, you know?
Mm.
Um,
Plus, Alien Isolation, it doesn't actually need to be that long. Like, regardless
no,
of, so it, with something like Last of Us Part 2, it's quite difficult It'd be quite difficult to tell that story while trying to cut. Like you'd have to cut out chunks of it,
Mm.
and it maybe that deserved to be a two-parter in itself, nearly. But with Alien Isolation, there's chunks. There's things in that game that you're just doing because they just need gameplay. Like it does not need to be as long as it is. Like it really doesn't. It's not like you could cut out so much chunks of that game and you're not affecting the story whatsoever. It's very, I suppose, like Dead Space in that way. Dead Space has a couple of missions where are kind of things like you need to go over there to fix a thing and then come back here to go over there to fix that thing. You know, those type of
Oh
situations. You're
yes,
just
yeah, yeah.
sending me places you're just sending me down there because there's an enemy basically. So that doesn't affect the story in any way. So you could easily cut it down.
No, I think the remake somewhat made traversing at least the Ishimura more fluid.
Yeah,
Like you did,
they benefit from obviously better hardware and stuff as well.
yeah, like you didn't have to like go to the medical bay, do that thingy, now go back to the tram, and then it's like
Mm.
from the medical bay, oh shit, this thing's happened. You go through the maintenance corridors and you go up to engineering or some shit.
Yeah.
So it made it a little bit streamlined. But yeah, like there's too many times where you're like, engineering, fix the engines. Go to medical, fix this thing. Go back to engineering because you had to shoot meteors. Oh, back to engineering or back to medical. You're like going back to
Mm-hmm.
too many places. But yeah, Dead Space. But like, so I think Resident Evil does balance it quite well in that you're nearly every challenge you do is to move you out of this location to a new location. You can go back to that location, but really it's about moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And later on in the story, you might circle back around.
Yeah. In the
But
most recent years, then before we just finish up here, in the most recent
mm,
years, is there a game that just because I think we probably established that going forward, what we'd like to see, especially story-driven experiences, is just jump into it. You know,
mm,
in the most recent years, is there a game that offers that? There's a great story, but they just jump into it.
apart from Resident Evil 4.
Apart from Resident Evil 4, you've mentioned that.
Yeah, I have. Recent years, great story. I mean, Final Fantasy 7 remake for sure does that.
Yeah.
Or is
Anything
that
more
that
recent than that?
anything more recent than that?
Does
I
Ragnarok? I think Ragnarok maybe jumps into it, doesn't it?
mm,
Like if we were to replay that, isn't it like okay, I'm actually in it now. I don't really
nah, it's
on
a bit of a
the sleigh. Is that not?
yeah. There's the
We're straight
sleigh,
into
but
it.
then
We're straight into it.
yeah, but then there's a slow start after that.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah,
Ragnarok. Okay, well, Ragnarok does have a pretty exciting start, but then it has a slow after it. But then I in more recent than that, I'd say Stellar Blade has a really fucking explosive start. But then I suppose after that prologue, yeah, there's slow exploration. So I suppose those two would be on par with each other
Okay.
with these kind of explosive starts, and
Mhm.
then I suppose you have that slow moment of get used to the controls and then get into it.
Because I would say from their other titles, then I haven't played enough of the Xbox ones now to really to comment on them. But on the PlayStation side, the Ghost of Tsushima even has quite a slow start, I think, before it gets into it. Before you start touching grass, you know, it's like that's
Right,
when it
yeah.
really opens up and becomes the game that it is. Before that, it's quite linear.
It's quite linear. It's a good start, but I suppose you're just
I felt nothing for the start. I saw the start and was like, this doesn't seem that great. The
yeah.
moment you're let
It's
loose on the horse and you go
mm.
over and you make a haiku, best game.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good game. But yeah, that's actually a game where somehow the start is fine. It's
Mm-hmm.
grand. You're like, okay, you're setting up the premise really.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you touch grass, yeah, it's a very it just
There's the
wow.
key, really. We as
Well,
we as
what you have
gamers,
is
in order to we need to touch grass, basically.
when you touch grass.
Is
Well,
what
pretty
we're
much what
saying.
you have is you have Helgen at the start of Ghost of Tsushima. except Helgen in Skyrim is better, I'd say. And then,
No, I mean that it doesn't
man,
take too long to get into it, but the beginning of Skyrim is always painful to play through.
the wagon
Always.
is.
Yeah, all of it, because you have to make your character, and that takes a while. And it's like it's once you get, I think once you get down to Riverwood, then it's like okay, I'm in the game. No, sorry, after Bleak Falls Barrow.
God,
It's quite a chunk
as
of the
much
game.
as we mentioned this game, you are
I don't
actually.
know. No, it is Whiterun. It is Whiterun because from there you don't have to go do Bleak. You know what I mean? You kind of need to. You don't even need to go to Riverwood,
No,
but you kind of will. It's where the road takes you.
I
And
will, but I actually met someone who said
they went
they
the other
did
way.
they did everything and then started the story. They never went to Whiterun
Perfect.
and all that. And I was like, wait, what? They
Sounds great.
never.
I think yeah. I think once you get out of Helgen, it's like so it doesn't take that long, but it is a bit of a drag. And I'm always like, can't wait to get past this bit and then kind of
Yeah,
play the game.
Oblivion probably has the better.
No, it doesn't. No.
No, but for getting into it
Nope.
because you're not sitting on a wagon.
I disagree. I think Skyrim is by far the easier one to just get into. Oblivion, nah, those sewers turns me off every time. Every time.
I fucking hate those
It's
series.
fucking annoying.
Oh my God, they're horrible. I remember trying to play that game back in the day, and I was like, I can't navigate these sewers. I don't know where you want me to go.
Mm.
This is bullshit.
Anyway, so I don't know how to, or if we can chapter this video at all due to the amount of ramblings. It's kind of like intro, fucking main discussion, end. So if you liked this conversation, please leave a thumbs up, and you can please hit subscribe and the notification bell for all future content. But we'd like to get your opinions and your takes in the comments below. How do you find, especially story-driven games, in terms of their replay value in comparison to games of the past? Do you find them replayable? Does that even matter? Do you prefer the way games are today, that you have more content and you can just move on to the next product that's out? And if you're listening to us on audio platforms, please touch base on social media at The Brothers Take to give your take on our games less or more replayable these days. So thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.